That's right.
All right. So basically, when it comes to the parts of the problem, well, I think you guys already know, no, that for the problem, basically last semester you had under the problem you had statement of the problem, significance of the study, and scope and delimitation. Now there's actually one part added this semester since we are having quantitative research. Now basically, when it comes to your statement of the problem, you guys have already finalized it, the one in your title approval form. That is your final statement of the problem. Although, if you wish, say you'd like to add or say you'd like to omit something there, or probably as we progress in your study, we see fit no nga need nga i-revise yung statement of the problem, then that's the time siguro no nga i-revise na yung statement of the problem. But for now, you retain the statement of the problem that you have in your title approval form. Okay? Is this clear, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So when I ask you to submit your the problem, what you just need to do for a statement of the problem na part, no, i-copy and paste to ninyo tong naa sa inyo ha nga title approval form. Of course, you have to make sure that the formatting is correct, etc. Now, next to your statement of the problem, and this is actually something that is not no present or is wala ni siya last time sa inyong qualitative research is ang inyong statement of the null hypothesis. So, if we are to recall what is what is a hypothesis, and hypothesis is so it is an educated guess. So when you conducted your research, or even when you start conceptualizing your research, you have already like an assumption, no, na there is a correlation between the two variables, or that there's a difference between male and female, kay kasagaran naman yun din yun, no, correlation or comparative, or probably some nag-predict sila or nag-assume sila that this variable affects the other variable. Otherwise, we would not actually conduct research kung wala man puday ka nito, or wala man puday ka nag-assume nga kanang duha ka variables correlated, or kana siyang variable maka-affect sa the other variable, or kanang duha male and female different sa usag-usa when it comes to a certain variable. So basically, um, before you write your research, you already have an assumption. And as a matter of fact, no, I ask you to in your disposition, no, so when you write your introduction, your disposition there is really proving that these two variables are correlated, or that male and female differs when it comes to this aspect, right? So naa na mo'y hypothesis, naa na mo'y assumption no, sa inyong study. Now, here, what you just need to take note is that we are going to have the null hypothesis, meaning to say it is actually the negation of your original assumption. So let's say, for example, your study is all about the correlation between video game addiction and academic performance. So unsa man inyong assumption dira sa inyong ana nga study? You assume that, let's say lang, we are correlating, again, video game addiction and academic performance. So with that title alone, we can already like see no kung unsa may ilang assumption. So if kana inyong study, unsa may inyong assumption?
That video game has somehow like an effect or an impact sa itong other variable, ma'am.
Okay, we are not going to use the word effect no, or impact, because we are just checking for correlation. So probably no, the best word is that some simple lang that video game addiction and academic performance has correlation, or that video game addiction is correlated or is related to the academic performance of the students. Not simple as that. Now again, negation ang null hypothesis, meaning to say bali or negative ana or opposite ana ang assumption. So instead of saying that there is a significant relationship between this variable and that variable, himo tangan insert na nimo no og no, there is no significant relationship between time management and academic performance. Simple as that. Now, I just need you to have, this is a standard na introductory statement. At 0.05 level of significance, the following hypothesis will be tested. So most of you guys, you only have one hypothesis. So basically, inyong symbol dara na is H, and very tiny nga O, zero or circle. No, it's not actually zero. It's not also letter O, but it's a very tiny circle. That's the symbol for null hypothesis. And then column, and then statement na yun, that there is no significant relationship between this variable and that variable. Or if you are having comparative studies, dili mo mag-ingon dira ano significant relationship. There is no significant difference between male and female, let's say, time management skills or academic performance or math anxiety or whatever dira nga aspect inyong di-compare ang babae ug lalaki. I hope everything is clear with null hypothesis. Dali ra kay na siya, guys. And again, take note of the standard na introductory statement na at 0.05 level of significance, the following hypothesis. Later on, when we talk about statistics, I would let you know, no, unsa man ng 0.05 dira, unsa man na siya, what does it indicate? Do you have questions about null hypothesis?
None so far, ma'am.
Okay. Next is, of course, now your significance of the study. And just like before, guys, no, sa inyong qualitative research, significance of the study somehow tells us, no, who your beneficiaries are and how they can benefit from your study. So you just need to think, no, dili kay tungod kay students mo ang mga beneficiaries sa pod are students, teachers, parents. No, you have to think, no, beyond that, no, who else could benefit from your study. And so the same format, after you tell us who are the beneficiaries, na who is the beneficiary, for example, students, naka-bold na siya, period, and then explanation na yun, how this beneficiary will benefit from your study. Then, scope and delimitation. This is the last part of the problem. Now, basically, scope and delimitation describes the parameters to which your study is set. So it sets boundaries of your research in terms of certain aspects, like what is your topic, no? What are your objectives? What are the indicators or factors? Now, if you have noticed, guys, diba, probably seeing a statement of the problem, and even when you looked for instrument, diba sa instrument, when you measure a certain variable, naman sila mga indicators, or sometimes they're called subscales or factors, subvariables. Usually indicators ang tawag nila, ana. So you can also discuss the indicators. For example, let me show you an example again, ha, kasi nalimot mo ani. I think I have shown you this when I discussed now how to look for instrument. So for example, aning this is a scale for time management skill. Now, basically, when you read the article, it actually mentions indicators or factors that we have to measure for us to really fully measure time management skills. Now, so marag naa pa tayong mga sub-factors or variables, no, sub-variables, or even indicators. So pariharan na, sometimes they call it indicators, sometimes they call it factors, sometimes they call it subscale, etc. So in here, as you can see, guys, the Indicators are short range planning, time attitudes, and long range planning. So basically, when they constructed the questionnaire for time management, they were looking into short range planning, time attitudes, and long range planning as well. And overall, no, with the uh, composition of these three indicators or factors, mo na dayon na ang imuhang time management skills. Now, of course, in every scale, lahi isa na sila og mga factors nga gipanghisgutan. So, what you just need to do is tanawa sa inyong scale, no? Most of the time, if naana sa inyong scale, I would ask you to mention that in your statement of the problem. And no, if imo nang basahon sa dira sa kuan, no, ang ilahang term diri is component. So, short range planning. Wait. Oh, actually, let's see now. Tara. So, these three components are the short range planning, time attitudes, and long range planning. So this is what I'm talking about when we say indicators or factors. So if you have that, if mentioned na sa inyong scale, then you also need to mention it sa inyong what do you call that? Sa inyong scope and delimitation. You may include that sa inyong discussion. Time frame, local, and participant. So time frame meaning to say when this study will be conducted, no, local, and then that's where you are going to conduct the study and the participants. Now, part of the discussion, if you still remember, guys, that part of the discussion, here's the scope and delimitation, is also the explanation, no? Nganong kanira man, let's say for example, there will be limitations na for example, this will only be focused, your study will only gonna focus on STEM students. So in scope and delimitation, this is also where you are going to discuss or explain the logical reasoning nganong STEM students naman inyong gi-include, nganong ang other nga strands dili man appeal sa inyong study, no? And or let's say for example, nganong grade 12 man ang inyong kuhaon, nga namang ang uban nga mga grades or grade 11 dili man ninyo apilon sa inyong study. So you would have to have a very good reasoning why unana inyong selection. No, so kay nga naman again in research, we actually this is your research is logical. So we cannot just say nga grade 12 lang ato ang respondents oy kay sila atong mga friends or sila atong field, wala tayo kaila sa grade 11 or wala tayo kaila sa line strand. No, we cannot have that because that's not a logical reasoning. So when we say logical reasoning, we are choosing or we are selecting our respondents, our locations, or our objectives because it is best suited sa atuang study or na ay certain nga ko naatay purpose for our study or something like that. So that's why you need to also discuss whatever limitations you have here and then explain nganong dira ra mo kutob, nganong limited raman mo most of the time no limited man mo sa inyong respondents. Okay, let's say kasagaran ninyo would focus only on STEM students. So you again this is the platform, this is the part of your research paper where you are going to discuss nganong ang STEM students ra ang included or nganong grade 12 lang or nganong grade 11 lang, etc. So that is for scope and delimitation. By the way, do you have questions about the problem?
No.
About the others?
All good, ma'am.
Okay. Sige, then let's proceed to your research methodology. Now, I'd like you to listen carefully, guys, because this one, different, no? Ato ang, different, ato ang, although pariharang way sa pag-discuss, but we have differences. Kay diri man jud diri man jud dapita nagkalahi ang quantitative sa ilahang methods of quantitative and qualitative ang methods of conducting the study. Although the way you write it, no, the principles and the concept of writing this part is just the same, but ang process is different. So I need you to really take note, no? So let me share my screen. That's it. So your research methodology is what we have. The same nagyapon no sa last semester. You have research design, research local. Design is this is your basically no, the research design of your study. Even before we have your title, nag-discuss na ko sa mga design. So you guys should already know what your designs are, your research designs. And then your locale, meaning to say the environment, no? Where you are going to conduct the study, the respondents, or yeah, we call them respondents. Last time we called them participants, right? Or informants. Now, this time around, we will be calling them respondents. You will not call them participants or informants. Do we copy that, guys? Dili pod subjects kay when you say subjects, kuan siya for experimental na nga studies. Manang we call them subjects. So again, the right term here sa quantitative research is respondents. And then instrument, meaning to say the tools that you will be using to gather the data. Then the research procedure, which is composed of data gathering procedure and data analysis procedure. So pare-parihara parihara gyud siya parts last time now. So first is your research design. That is the first paragraph of your research methodology. Although naapuday ko natay introductory paragraph just to introduce what this section of your paper will be discussing, and then after that you will proceed on discussing the research design. So this is like the first subheading of your research methodology, your design. So what you just need to do here is very simple. Now you just need to introduce the design that you are using, and then you are going to define the design that you are using. So for example, there, the study will make use of correlational design to assess the relationship of students' math attitude and academic performance. Dayon iyaha dayong define dayon ang correlational design. Now, please take note that when you write your research methodology, it should be in future tense. Do we copy? Guys, please butang dira sa inyong notes, no, that when you write your research design, it should be in future tense pa. Kay we have not yet conducted the study, so everything here is just a plan. No, wala pa ni nahitabo. Then after discussing or introducing your design, you will move to discussing your research locale or your research environment. So in here, you would just simply tell us where you are going to conduct the study. Now, I think wala study nga outside University of Cebu. So of course ang inyuhang local dira is University of Cebu, and you just need to mention the address of the University of Cebu University of Cebu main, no, the correct jud ko kuan ani guys pangalan sa atong eskwelahan, no, not UC Pry, no, but University of Cebu Main Senior High School Department. Again when inyong panel mangutana ra bag yun na unsay pangalan sa atong eskwelahan. So you do not say it's UC Pry, because actually before, when the building was inaugurated, it was proposed that the name of the school will be named UC Pry, but then our chancellor at that time, which is now who is now our president, Miss Candice Guchanoy, said that dili niya i-approve ang UC Pry And instead, it will be called University of Cebu Main Senior High School Department. Okay, so sakto no, University of Cebu Main. Kuan ng campus, walay campus na University of Cebu Main Senior High School Department. And then located, address na yun, no, of the school, and then the short information, no. For example, your study is all about or revolving around STEM students. So aside from introducing what are the tracks offered or what are the strands offered sa University of Cebu as short information, you can also mention like how many students, probably no estimation lang how many students are enrolled in STEM, no? Or just brief nga mga information that is revolving sad, no? Again, that is actually relevant sa inyong topic. So you can provide short information sa university revolving or relevant, that is relevant to your topic. For example, your topic is all about tardiness. So tardiness meaning to say late, no, pila ka buok mga students ang late or how tardy these people are. Now you can, sa una ang way ana no is kay sa una gina-take note man ang kinsa ang malate, and so we can gather data from the prefect of the discipline, no, mga data kung pila ka buok ang na late na since the start of the semester, pila naman ka buok ang recorded as late. So that since ilang study is all about tardiness man, so they can provide now that information like in University of Cebu Main Senior High School Department, there is already a total of this number or let's say 200 no people being late, no, or recorded tardiness in the since the start of the semester. So again, what I'm trying to say here, no, is that when you say short information, it should be a short information about the university that is relevant to your topic. And then the summarized version of your mission, vision, and goal. So ana ra ang local. That can only be like usara na ka paragraph inyong local, guys. Ayun lang po kayo nyo taasa. Okay? Now let's move to the research respondents. So this part again discusses how the respondents of the study are selected and how an appropriate sampling method is chosen. So I think I have discussed also to you guys no last time how what are the sampling methods or sampling techniques, no, in choosing your respondents. So let's first talk about the sample size or your respondents. Pila man ka, when say sample size, meaning to say pila man ka buok respondents na aninyo, no, or pila man ka respondents ang plano ninyo nga kuhaon. So there are actually formula that we can solve, no, that you guys can use so that you can determine the required number of respondents. So, di ba before, sa inyong qualitative, sa man atong basihan, di ba, data saturation, if you are still familiar of that, no, nga, wala tayo specific number of respondents, but the soonest time that the data is already saturated, meaning to say, nangita taog mga nang interview ta, and then at some point, no, nagbalik-balik na ilang mga tubag, then we can now stop looking for respondents. So wala tayo specific na number of respondents during our qualitative research. But here's atong quantitative research. We will have formula. So before we conduct the survey, nanatay number already, nanatay specific number, nanatay specific target of respondents, number of respondents. So one of the formula that you can use is the Sloven's formula. So the formula is sample size equals the population size divided by 1 plus population size times desired margin of error squared. Okay, so basically, we use Sloven's formula when you have limited information about the characteristics of the population and are using a non-probability sampling procedure. So later on, we are going to review no on sa mga ganito mga non-probability sampling procedure nga itong pwedeng magamit. So if you are using non-probability sampling procedure, most likely you will also be using Sloven's formula. And again, this is the formula. If you guys are not familiar of the desired margin of error, it's actually like because we cannot really kuan bitaw kanang we cannot assume that our research will be 100% perfect. So we will gonna try to provide a room for errors. Okay, now for room for errors for non-medical studies, ang pinaka well, most of the time we use 0.05 as our margin of error if it's non-medical studies. But of course, for medical nga mga studies or medical nga mga researches, it's only 0.01. That could 0.01 ang pinakataas nga margin of error. That's why mingon gid mo nga hala oy ang safeguard nakapatay sa 99.9% of germs but wala nakapatay sa 0.01. Because again, that is a desired margin of error. Because even if the product is working 100%, no, ang efficiency and efficacy sa product, but because of the margin of error, they cannot claim that it's 100%. Because again, nasa sila yung margin of error nga 0.01. But again, in medical research, ang pinakataas nga margin of error is 0.01. That should not be more than that because of course, it's medical. We're talking about life here. But for non-medical studies like ours, no, pareha sa inyo ha, dili pa na medical studies inyo ha, we will be using 0.05. So when you are going to compute this formula, you would have to just kanang say tawag ana, ilisdan na ninyo ang i dira og 0.05. Another formula that you can use is the Kalmoren's formula. So this is used when the population is more than 100 and the researchers decide to utilize scientific sampling. Now, this one's more complicated now, but there are actually video tutorials, guys, how to use Kalmoren's formula. And in your book as well, there is a sample computation of the Kalmoren's formula. So you can just look up there, no, how to actually you just need to man singalan ani. So ini tawag ana sa math, guys, kana inyong ilistan na mga terms. I don't know. What do you call that? In math, kanang like say for example, sample size SS sample size equals NV population size times standard value of 2.58. When you are going to solve it, nga imuha na nag-ilisan og numbers, what do you call that, guys? Imuhang replace tawag. Substitute, yeah. Substitutean na ninyo og mga actual na numbers. All right. And then there's also other considerations, guys. So if you guys are, because most of the time people, when you use formula in, in solving for the sample size, meaning to say pila kabok in your respondents ng nakwaon. Most of the time, dinaghanay yun na ilaha. No, we're talking about hundreds now because again in your population there are, let's say, STEM, and how many students pa ng STEM, like I think more or less 2,000, no? And then so if you're to compute that, probably maabot tag 200 tag 300 sa una gani kay ang population sa University of Cebu Senior High School main lang, no, sa main lang is 6,000 mi kabuok before. So 6,000 kabuok mga students, and imagine, no, pila ka book, inig-compute nila sa formula, mabot og tag 600, mabot og tag 1,000 kapin ang ilahang respondents. So if you don't like that, no, so we also have the other considerations. Now this is other considerations with other authors. Now let's say for example, Schott 1990 said that sample sizes as small as 30 are generally adequate to ensure the sampling distribution of the mean approximate uh, of the mean will approximate that normal curve. So meaning to say, if you are having correlational study or even other nga mga types of studies, no, 30 is adequate. 30 respondents daw is already adequate. Meaning to say, enough na. Pwede ra nga 30 ka book inyong respondents. Or according to, I think this is also still according to Schott 1990, when the total population is equal to or less than 100, this same number may serve as your sample size, and this is called universal sampling. So let's say, for example, imong target population, arts and design students. Now, kaning arts and design students, wala gini sila nakaabot og 100. I believe so. Wala, yeah. It's silang mo focus sa grade 12 students. Grade 12 arts and design. So wala yun sila nakaabot og 100. So if you want, no, you can have the universal sampling wherein all of the people and sa arts and design will be interviewed. So that would be called universal sampling. Another consideration as well is according to Gay 1976. Gay 1976 is actually, it's actually supported by Schott 1990, no? Wherein Gay said na if your study is descriptive, then you can just have 10 to 20%. So, imuha lang kwaon ng 10 to 20% of the total population, and that would be your respondents. For correlational studies, 30 respondents is already enough. Pwede ra gid kuno nga 30 ka book. For comparative, kung nag-compare mo og male and female, so 15 male and 15 female is already adequate or enough, no? So 15 per group. And for experimental, 15 to 30 subjects per group. So again, you may choose to use formula, or you may also use other considerations in determining how many respondents you should have. Okay. Questions about the sample size so far, guys?
None pa so far. No.
None. Okay. Then I think we have already discussed this. So this would be somewhat like a review na, no? So again, guys, there are two kinds of sampling procedure that you can use, no, when you will be looking for respondents later on. So there's what we call probability sampling and non-probability sampling. So when we talk about probability sampling, it's a type of sampling in which all members of the population are given a chance of being selected. Whereas the opposite of that is the non-probability sampling, wherein not the entire population will be given the chance to be selected as a respondent. Now, the first type, under probability sampling, we have simple random sampling. So for simple random sampling, guys, these are techniques lang jud, guys, no, that wherein the selection is unbiased. Now, for example, fishbowl, roulette, magbunot-bunot na fishbowl technique. Roulette, wheel, meaning katong ay ruleta, magruleta mo para you would randomly select, no, the respondents, no, or you can even like print out a picture of your all of your population, no, yung target nyo, kinsa lay naigo sa inyong dart mo na to inyong mga respondents. So that is one simple random sampling. Then there's also what we call stratified random sampling. This is still under probability sampling. So in this strategy or in this technique, the population will be divided into different strata. Then all sampling follows. So for example, imo siyang i-divide into according to gender or according to age or according to strand, no? According to track baka karon, etc. So and then from there, pwede pa gyapon nimong ipang divide sila, no, after nimo silang group according to a certain strata. um After that, you may still kanang mag-divide pa yun nila, and then from there manguha ka og number of respondents. For example, um um manguha ka og per track, no? Let's say for example sa tibuok nga University of Cebu Senior High School Department, University of Cebu Main Senior High School ang imuhang population, imong target population. So what you need to do is you can divide them according to track. So let's say academic track, textbook track, and arts and design. So nakay tulo na daan ka mga categories. Imo na silang ipang divide. Then after that, imo pa jud silang, let's say imuhang i-divide to grade 12 and grade 11. So now, as instead of having 3 groups, you would now have pila man 6, no? Kay grade 11 and grade 12 na academic track, grade 11 and grade 12 na textbook track, and grade 11 and grade 12 na arts and design. And from there, pwede na kang mga, no, let's say tag na po kabuok randomly selected from grade 11 academic track na po sa grade 12 academic track na po sa grade 11 textbook track na po sa grade 12 textbook track, and so on. So that's what the stratified random sampling is used when you want nga, although random ang imong pagka-select sa ilaha, you still want nga covered bitaw nimo ang almost all nga sa man aspect sa ilaha, or for example almost all, or ganahan ka nga heterogeneous jud ang imong respondents nga dili lang, let's say 90% of your respondents will be coming from STEM or 90% will be coming from ABM. So if you want na scattered jud ang ang characteristics sa imong respondents, then you can have the stratified random sampling. Because before you choose them, you are already dividing them. So makasigurado gid ka nga every group na kay makuha. Then for cluster sampling, this actually follows almost the same procedure with a stratified random. It's just that for cluster sampling, it's usually used for mga dinagkuay, no, mga wide range ng mga studies. Then systematic sampling is when you are going to, this is still no under probability sampling. So what will happen here is that ang tanan nga mga members sa imong population. So let's say for example, imong population is all about imong target population is ang STEM. So imong title dira is, let's say, correlation of self-esteem and academic performance of STEM students. So imong population na STEM students. So imong ilista ang tanan nga mga students sa STEM, and then you are going to assign them with numbers. And then once na na-assign na nimo ang numbers, you are going to like decide, no, let's say for example, well, na magkuha tag 30 kabuk respondents. Okay, so 30 kabuk atong need na respondents sa STEM. Now, what will happen? So let's say every 50th will be our our respondents. So katong mga estudyante nga nalista under katong mga estudyante nga na-assign sa number 50, 100, 150, 200, 50, 300, sila to imuhang mga, and so on so forth, sila to imuhang mga respondents. So systematic siya in a sense nga ang numbering of selecting the respondents na is somehow systematic. Say every 5th, so meaning to say katong mga nalista, katong na-assign sa number 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, and so on so forth will be your respondents. So that is what we call systematic sampling. Now let's move to non-probability sampling. So under non-probability sampling, we have convenience sampling. So it is again a type of non-probability sampling, which is also called as accidental or incidental sampling. For example, you have already determined the size of the sample. So let's say nigamit lang mo sa GAY 1976 nga 30 kabuk inyong respondents. Then let's say nga inyong study is focusing on STEM students. So katong mga let's say during the conduct of the study, di ba mag-conduct mo survey. So most of the time nani ang mga buhaton sa mga estudyante no, mag-print out sila og kanang survey questionnaire daan, and then during face-to-face pa man to, atong reference lang is face-to-face. So what they would do is they would randomly or go to the rooms no, if ever na walay klase, and then they would ask sa section kung who are willing to participate sa survey, and then kung kinsa tong willing and who are available during that time, then sila ang mahimong respondents no, sila ang mo answer sa survey questionnaire. Katong mga wala didto ni absent na CR ni adtong canteen o wala na sila chance nga mahimong respondents kay wala naman nilabay naman mo man naman ninyong kuan anang section, etc. So basically mo na gitawag convenience sampling kay kung kinsa lay available during the conduct of the study, then they will be the participants or the respondents of the study. There's also what we call quota sampling. So it's another type of non-probability sampling, which is similar to stratified sampling, in which the population is divided into homogeneous strata. Then the sample elements are selected from each stratum. For example, the researchers desired 30 male students. The first 30 male students who are approached will be asked to participate in the study. So the same pari-parihara ni siya og kuan no sa stratified random sampling in a sense that you will be grouping no the respondents. So for example, ingon ka nga dapat makakuha ko og 20 kabuok sa academic track. So once nga maka-reach na ka og academic 20 kabuok respondents, once nga nakakuha na ka og 20 kabuok respondents sa academic track, that's already, you have already reached your quota. So you will now stop looking for respondents. You will now proceed to the other group na po. Let's say, dapat magkuha kog na po kabuok respondents sa TechVoc. Okay, so again, quota, you will just stop once you have already reached your quota. Then purposive sampling. So for purposive sampling, guys, is again another type of non-probability sampling, which involves hand-picking of the respondents. So always remember, guys, that when we say purposive sampling, naagid tay criteria in choosing the respondents. So we do not just choose them randomly, but we have actually a set of criteria that we have to follow in looking for participants. So dili mo ingon nga mo randomly ko ano, so you would still have to assess the participants if pasok ba siya sa criteria nga inyong gipangita as respondents. For example, your study is all about video game addiction. Now, of course, no, you would have to set criteria na in a sense nga mangita gyud mo og mga respondents nga dili lang katong mga modula o video game, dili lang tong ingon nga modula lang sila no or something. You would have to really kanang try to look for respondents nga medyo nagsigig jud sila dula. I mean, dili siya ingon pareha sa uban ba nga okay og kanus alang mo na hunaan no or kanus alang feel nga magdula no. You would really have to look for respondents, although dili jud ingon nga mangita jud katong addict yun, but at least part sa inyong criteria in looking for the participants or katong mga at least let's say nagduwa og 2 hours a day no or 3 hours a day nga mga estudyante. Or yeah, so nana ba you are going to provide criteria based on what is best suitable, what is best uh, fit sa inyong study. So if you have that, then you would have to use purposive sampling. Now, there's also one kung ano, sampling technique. Now, if naay makahinumdom sa usa, kinsay makahinumdom sa usa nga wala na ako nabutang diri, because this is exactly the same slides that I was using last semester. Unsay wala diri pa nato na discuss nga non-probability sampling siya, and we are going to use that if pananglitan lisod pangitaon ato ang respondents. What do we call that technique? If you can still recall, guys. Let's say lisod pangitaon inyong respondents, wala kayo makit-an aning una-ana. So how do you, what sampling technique you can you also use? Wala, nalimot na, guys. People. Very good, na? Nakainomdom pag yun. Right, snowball sampling. So when we say snowball sampling, guys, if you can still recall, it is sampling via referral. No, so if, say for example, lisod pangitaon, wala kay may kaila nga onana, no, na may gisat nga criteria, and then maglisod yun mo og ganang pangita og mga respondents nga mapasok ana nga criteria, then you may also utilize snowball sampling, wherein you would ask probably, no, your friends or even katong imong mga existing nga mga respondents. Kay for example, for sure kanang mga birds with the same feathers flock together. So kanang knowledge po na sila siguro kaila nga parehan nila og characteristics, no. So you may also ask them, ay na may kaila na kay friend nga parehan nimo nga at least tag 3 hours a day, no, or ka-party siguro nimo nga nagsige mugdula, no, nana. So you may ask that, no. So that is what we call snowball sampling. Very good. Now, how do you write your research respondents? Okay, so this is like your guidelines now on how you are going to write your research respondents. So first, describe who are your respondents. Then describe the sample size or the number of respondents that you will have. Explain why you chose those set of respondents. So, diba, I mentioned to you guys nga sa inyong scope and delimitation, you would have to explain nganong sila ang set of respondents nga imong gikuha. So you will also do the same thing here sa research respondents. Actually, guys, can you scope and delimitation? To tell you honestly, it's just like a shortened version, a summarized version sa inyong research methodology. But anyway, you would still have to explain that here sa inyong research respondents. And then explain how you determine the sample size. So, nganong naabot man ka, nganong nakakam up man ka ana. So, if nagamit mo sa GAIN 1976, then you just need to mention, no, let's say for example, there are 30 respondents. The respondents will, the researchers will utilize 30 STEM students as the respondents of the study. According to GAIN 1976, 30 respondents is already adequate to conduct correlational research design. So basically, inyo lang i-mention, no, nga nung nakakam up mo ng 30. No, so that's again, if you are using the other consideration by SHOT 1990 baka karon or kang GAIN 1976, but it's inyo ra nang i-mention dira. Then you state the sampling procedure that you will use. So unsa man tong sampling technique? Are you going to use purposive? Are you going to use convenience? Are you going to use quota? Are you going to use simple random sampling? But of course, guys, please always take note that if you are using purposive sampling, paminaw tarong guys ha, if naggamit mo purposive sampling, you definitely have to also include the criteria of choosing your respondents. Because again, when we use purposive sampling, we are following a set of criteria. So you have to mention the criteria in choosing your respondents here. Otherwise, you just need to proceed on defining the sampling procedure with citation. So say, for example, you are using convenience sampling, so you would just have to introduce that you will use convenience sampling and then define convenience sampling with citation. So an around process. There, I will be giving you examples or samples. Don't worry. Then, after you're done with mo din sample, guys. Speaking of sample, then after you're done with research respondents, you are now going to proceed on your research instrument. So for your instrument, again, unsay inyong main tool or instrument in gathering your data? Unsay inyong main tool, guys? Hala, people. Last sem, you have interview questionnaire. This time, what is your kuan, guys? Instrument.
Surveys.
Huh? What is your instrument now?
Surveys, no?
Okay, very good. Survey questionnaire. Later on, we will draft or I'll gonna ask you to draft your conduct later on pa na siya, no? Sige lang. So, here, sa instrument people, you just need to introduce now the tools or the survey questionnaires that you will or you just actually need to introduce first now that you will be using a survey questionnaire to measure the variable or your to gather data. Then explain each part of the questionnaire. Provide important information such as the title of the questionnaire, the author, how many items, the rating scale, and the reliability test score. This is very important, people. Now, wala ni siya sa inyong qualitative study before, no? But you need to discuss, no? The title. Okay, di ba naman, di ba I asked you that we will be adapting or adopting. Later on, mag-differentiate ta sa adapt o adopt. Now, when we say adapt, sige, ako na lang explain. When we say adapt, meaning to say, we still borrow questionnaires, no? So we still, like, you still have like uh, you will still borrow questionnaires from katong yung gipangita ng mga questionnaires. But then, naamoy usbon, naamoy i-tweak. For example, maski gamay lang kaayo sa inyong questionnaire, then we would call it adapted with A, adapted. But if, for example, totally wala gyud mo giusab sa questionnaire, you just really copied and pasted the items, you have yung retain exactly the same ang items, and at the same time ang scaling wala niyo giusab totally 100%, wala gyud may nausab, then that's what we call adopted questionnaire. So with O na siya, adopt. So of course, now you would have to mention nga sa inyong questionnaire you have adapted or adopted questionnaires. Then you need to mention the title, the author of that questionnaire, how many items are there, the rating scale, and the reliability test score. Again, reliability test score is very important. So there's an example here. Marang mentioned now that the researchers utilize standard questionnaires in gathering the data. The questionnaire was divided into three parts: the profile, the self-efficacy, and the procrastination. The first part of the questionnaire is the profile of the respondent, which includes the name, year, section, age, and gender. The second part of the questionnaire is about self-efficacy. To measure self-efficacy of the students, the researchers used self-efficacy scale that was developed by Rosenberg based on Gatman scale. The scale consists of 10 one-dimensional items on 4-point scale. 1, strongly agree, strongly disagree. 4, 2, 4, strongly agree. And there's a balance between positive and negative items. Scoring of 5 items are reversed. In previous study, alpha value for the scale has been reported as 0.82. The third part is all about the students' procrastination. Students' version of the general procrastination scale was developed to measure students' procrastination level. General procrastination scale contains 20 items on 5-degree Likert scale to measure procrastination. Dayon, information na dayon na sa scale. So as what you can see, now they explained each part of the survey questionnaire, and then they also mentioned the title of the questionnaires that they have adopted. And then they also mentioned the author, the scaling, the rating scale, no? And then even most importantly, the reliability test score. This is for us to establish, to your readers and to your panel, that you are not just adopting any random questionnaire, but you are actually adopting or adapting standardized questionnaire. Then for data gathering procedure, the same regular siya nga procedure. It's just that this time you will be conducting a survey. So of course, we would have to secure transmittal letter to the principal, and then after securing, or after the transmittal letter is signed, you will proceed on conducting your sampling procedure. So for you to determine who will be your participants, or who will be your respondents of the study. So once nga na-identify na ninyo who will be the respondents, you will be giving them informed consent. So for them to be informed, kung unsay goal and unsay method sa study, and if there are any inconveniences sa ilang side, or any nga mga any information about the research, they should know about that. So they will be given informed consent, and once they sign and fully agree on participating the study, then you will proceed on giving them the survey questionnaire. Once the survey questionnaire, once ng ilahan ng maansiran, they will inyong kolektahon balik, and after collecting it, you will proceed to data analysis procedure dayon. Now for data analysis procedure, what you just need to mention is how you are going to write the data. I'm sorry. What you're just going to mention is that what are the statistical tools that you will use in analyzing the data, and explain what is it for, and how is it being used in the studies. For example, most of the time you will be using this one, guys. For correlational design, magamit ta og means and standard deviation to determine the student's level of self-efficacy. Determine the level of the variables, no? But so maggamit pag means and standard deviation to determine or measure each of your variable. Then most of the time you will also be using Pearson product moment correlation coefficient to determine the relationship of the two variables. For comparative study, most of the time you will be using frequency and percentage to determine the number, the frequency distribution of your group, or your respondents under that group. And then the same thing nagyapon means and standard deviation to measure the variable, and then independent t-test to measure the difference between the two groups. So most of the time kanira gyud ato mga statistical tool nga gamitan na weighted mean and standard deviation, Pearson product moment correlation coefficient, frequency and percentage, independent sample t-test. Independent sample t-test is when you are going to, diba? If you're to recall, independent sample t-test is used if you are going to compare two groups. If there are more than two groups, then most likely you would be using ANOVA. So 3 or more, groups na gani mo gi-compare ANOVA na inyong gamitan. Dependent sample t-test is when you are going to compare data from only one group. For example, imong i-compare ang iyang grade last semester sa karon nga grade. So one group of respondents but duha ka book data ang inyong i-compare, but these data will be just coming from the same group. So mo nagitawag na to dependent sample t-test. Let's say for example, ang STEM 1A, akong i-compare ilang grado sa math nga mga subjects and sa ilang science nga subjects. Now, only one group lang na siya, but atong gi-compare dire is ang duha ka data coming from that only one group. So mo nang gitawag na tong dependent sample t-test. Then simple linear regression is usually used if we are testing for predictive variables. So if mo ang i-check kung naabay predictive correlation ang duha, then we would be using most of the time now linear regression. We can also use linear regression if we are correlating three or more nga mga numeric variables or continuous variables. If we are correlating nominal variable and continuous variable, we will be using chi-square for that. Meaning to say, ang usa nimo ka variable is nominal and usa nimo ka variable is continuous. Nya imuha gani na silang i-correlate, we will be using chi-square. And then there's one Spearman-Rho. Anyway, wala lang na ako ni siya gi-mention diri guys. Anyway, these are the most commonly used nga mga statistical tools. So basically, nanira inyong buhaton guys. Means and standard deviation will be used to determine the student's level of self-efficacy and their level of academic procrastination. Okay, ang iyang di-correlate ani guys is ang self-efficacy and academic procrastination. So remember na 'di ba sa inyong specific problem, if you are to imagine giunsa niya ang iyang specific problems diri, iyang gipangutana na what is the level of student self-efficacy. So for us to answer what is the level of student self-efficacy, we would have to use means and standard deviation. And then second question probably what is the level of the academic procrastination of the students. So for us to answer the question what is the student's level of academic procrastination, we'd have to compute their weighted mean and their standard deviation. And then for us to answer the question, is there a significant relationship between this variable and that variable? Most of the time we will be using Pearson product moment correlation. So and the Pearson product moment correlation is coefficient, is also what we will use to answer. This is also now answering your hypothesis, null hypothesis. This is also one way for us to prove or disprove your null hypothesis kung naa ba dyan significant relationship ang duha ka variables or wala. For comparative, again, the same thing lang gihapon, if you are to imagine or imuhang i-recall ang inyuhang specific problem dira, nangutana mo if number one, what is the gender distribution of the respondents? So for us to answer that, so we will count, frequency count and percentage itong gamiton. And then let's say what is the student's level of unsa na yung variable dira, maggamit siya po weighted mean and standard deviation. And then independent t-test tayon to compare the two. All right, now I need you to start working on the problem and research methodology. I will ask you to submit all of these on Saturday this week, or probably kuan na lang para nagyapon mo kay time Monday next week na lang. I'll be asking you to submit these the problem and research methodology on Monday next week. Okay, is this noted? It's already time, guys. So if you have questions, park it na lang. I-park lang sana ninyo and then I'll gonna answer them on Wednesday. All right, thank you so much, guys. You may now go to your next subjects and have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you
Fine,
so
thank you for the day,
much.
ma'am. God bless.
Bye. Welcome.